Hi, this is Kathy from Gadgets Top 321, and in today's video I'm going to be taking a look at my currently inked pens. And you may have noticed from the thumbnail or the title to this video, one of my favorite pens really let me down this week, and I'll talk about that later. I've got a copper colored Pilot Explorer with a medium nib that I've been using exclusively with my Clever Fox planner. I use it as a notebook for my Sunday school class. I'm a teacher, so I keep my teacher notes in here. I've got another Pilot Explorer with, I think it has a medium nib also, that I've got in my Filofax clipbook. I use this at church also for taking notes when I'm the student, like sermon notes or class notes. And then the other four pens I just use for random journaling or note taking. I just don't have a specific job for any of these. So I'm going to begin with a writing sample of each. I'll do that in my old Hobonichi Weeks that's got 52 GSM Tomoe River paper. It's kind of cream colored. I'm going to begin with my newest pen, my Leonardo Momento Zero in the jade finish. It has an extra fine stainless steel nib. The size of the nib is marked on the side. When I first got this pen, it was scratchy when writing to the right, and so just a little bit of micro mesh has made this very smooth in all directions. There's still just a little bit of feedback. Let's see if you can hear it. But it's not really feedback that you can feel. I would say this is not a glassy smooth nib, but it is very smooth. It's perfect for me. I like a little bit of feedback. I don't feel like it's so glassy smooth that I'm going to slide off the page. It's just perfect. And because it was so scratchy when I first got it, I was on vacation and I wasn't able to smooth the nib. I did a fair amount of writing in reverse and discovered that it was very nice also. Now, this is unusual. It's getting a little, yeah, it's running a bit dry. And that reminds me, I think it's because this is a glitter ink. This is Jacquerbon Verde Atlantide. Oh, I'm misspelling it again. CQ. And quite a bit of the writing I've been doing with this pen is math. My daughter's taking a math class and we do math problems together. I'm a retired math teacher, so I enjoy doing math problems for fun. And I've been using this pen, and twice I've picked up the pen and gone to write and it was kind of dry like this. Now that was reverse writing, but it was really dry in writing forward. And I think it was just a shimmer clog. This is a shimmer ink, and it's a very fine shimmer. I've only had this issue twice, but it was just enough to be an inconvenience that reminds me that I'm not a big fan of shimmer inks. I've written with it, several times a day for a couple weeks now, and I've only had issues twice, so I'm confident that it's not an issue with the nib or the feed or the pen in any way. I'm pretty sure it's just shimmer getting clogged up in the feed. But when I got this pen, I really wanted to get it with an elastic, extra fine nib, and they didn't have it in stock. I went to a brick and mortar store, Appleboom, and I thought, well, when I get home, I'll just order one. That's a good thing about these Leonardo nibs. You can order replacement nibs. But I've been so happy with this one that this extra fine nib, it's not springy, it's pretty stiff, but I'm able to write with such a light hand that I don't feel like I need that springiness, that shock absorber effect in my nib. So I haven't been in any rush to order an elastic nib, but I do still enjoy watching the reviews of people who do have them. That's probably something I'm going to ask for Christmas. While I've got this pen out, I just wanted to show that I've been keeping it in a rickshaw. I think this is a long sleeve. I ordered this one especially for my custom 74. It was the size that they recommended for the custom 74, and it fits my Leonardo Momento Zero perfectly. Next, I've got my Monteverde Pocket Ritma. It has the small Omniflex nib. There are no markings on it. We'll see if this writes. I've had it inked up for a while, and the only ink left in it is the ink in the feed. The converter's pretty much empty. Yeah, still writing. I love this nib, and I've got it inked up with Diamine Earl Grey. Now, when I first got this pen, it took some searching. A couple of the inks, actually several of the inks that I tried in it, would dry out, and I had severe issues with hard starch. You can see how far the nib extends out past the feed. And I've discovered that Earl Grey performs flawlessly in it. And this nib has a slight stubbiness to it that I just absolutely love. And the reverse writing is nice. I get a very, very fine line, and it's nice and smooth. So this is a very versatile pen. I love the magnetic cap. It's just a great little quick note taker. Next, I've got my Lamy Logo. This is a model that I got a few years ago. It came in two finishes, two lacquer finishes. There was like a dark purple, and I got the pearl finish. And it's got a little bit of a texture to it, just a kind of a matte texture, but it feels nice and grippy. I really like the finish on this pen. I replaced the steel nib that came on this pen originally with a 14 karat gold extra fine nib that came on my Lamy Studio. This is a nice wet writing pen. This is the only pen and nib that I like Lamy Blue Black in, and that's what I have it inked up with right now. I think I got some Lamy Blue Black cartridges to go with, I think it was my CP1, or it may have been this logo back when it had a steel nib. I just don't like Lamy Blue Black in a steel nib. It looks I guess it looks too just pale and gray, but in this nice wet gold nib, it's nice and bold. I really like it. Let's see what the reverse writing is like. It's a bit scratchy, but it's nice and wet, so I'm able to write with a pretty light hand. But if this were a steel nib, I would do a little smoothing on it, but this nib is so perfect in the regular direction. I don't want to do anything that might alter the ink flow, so I'm not going to mess with it. One of the things I like about this nib is that it's got just a slight hint of an architect-like grind to it, a slight architect character to the writing that I really enjoy. It makes it feel like you're writing with a brush pen almost. Now, one of the things I've noticed recently, this cartridge came out of another pen, that zebra, that little inexpensive zebra pen. And this is what I was going to show. This cartridge was a nice tight fit in the zebra pen, but when I went to take it out of the zebra pen to put in this one, I noticed that some ink was leaking. So I put it into this pen, and it felt like a nice tight fit, but I checked back later, and it was, you can maybe see, it's inking around the edges there. So I think I'm going to clean this one out. It's almost out of ink anyway, and I just don't want ink to continue coming into contact with some of these metal parts back here and possibly cause any corrosion. I also need to check the inside of this barrel when I clean it out also. I need to insert a clip here. After I filmed the video that you're watching right now, I went and cleaned out a few pens, and I noticed that my Lamy blue-black cartridge that I had in my Lamy Logo has a crack here in the lip. You may be able to see it right there in the glare. And that's why it was leaking inside the barrel. Just a little bit of ink was seeping out. I had originally installed this Lamy cartridge in my zebra fountain pen, and it was a nice snug fit, but I didn't like the way it wrote, so I was going to move this cartridge to the Lamy Logo, and when I went to take it out, I saw there was a little bit of ink seeping out, and so I'm comparing the zebra cartridge to the Lamy cartridge, and the external diameter looks like it's the same, but if you compare the internal diameter of the zebra to the Lamy, the zebra looks a bit larger. The thickness of that lip is not as thick. The Lamy cartridge seems to have a thicker lip, and I thought, that would make it strong enough, but if you're putting it on a post that's just too large, it's going to break. So I can throw this one away, and if I decide to use this zebra pen again, I'm going to stick to refilling the included cartridges. And this was not the pen that let me down this week. I'm still getting to that. Next, I've got a Kaweco Liliput with a clip that I bought separately and added. This pen came with a stainless steel nib in the silver color, but I replaced it with a gold-plated stainless steel double broad nib. That hard start there, I believe, is because I was writing at a really lower than normal angle. I've got it inked up with Diamine Writer's Blood. I really like this nib and ink combination. The name Writer's Blood really suits it. It's got really nice subtle shading, and I just like the way it looks. I like the character it has. And let's see, I think this double broad, my reverse writing's not great on it. Yeah. I've discovered on my Kaweco nibs that reverse writing is hit and miss. My broad nib is a great reverse writer. This one's just a little too dry. I've worked on smoothing it to see if that would help, and it's nice and smooth now, but it's still just too dry to be of any practical use. I've been using this pen quite a bit for writing on index cards, just plain old, your everyday cheap index cards that you can get at the dollar store. And I've been using them to make flashcards and note cards for the math work that my daughter and I have been doing. And it looks great on that paper. It's not feathery, and the nice broad line is really suitable for making flashcards. Next, I've got my Copper Pilot Explorer. It has a stainless steel medium nib. I've got this one inked up with Herbin Poussière de Lune. I'm really enjoying this ink and nib combination also. And I really like it on that Clever Fox paper. It just performs really well. It's a joy to use. Let's see, have I checked reverse writing? Oh yeah, and reverse writing is very nice. These pens will fit the Con 70 converter from Pilot, and that adds a little bit of weight in there and just gives it gives you a little more weight, makes it feel a little more quality, a little more substantial. But I'm still just using the little squeeze converter that came with it because it's just so convenient. I've got my bottle of ink here on my desk. I just dip it in, give it one little squeeze, and I'm good to go for quite a while. So I don't know how much ink is in here right now, but if I'm going to be taking it out and about, it's just real quick to top it off with ink. And this is the pen that let me down. My silver Pilot Explorer. I think this is the first Pilot Explorer I got. It also has a stainless steel medium nib. This is the one that I keep in my Filofax clipbook. Now, it's starting to get hot around here, and I keep all my stationery stuff up in my study. It's upstairs, and it gets kind of hot up here, so I've started keeping my inked pens downstairs. I don't want to have any issues with ink burping or anything. And so I took this pen to church last week, and I opened it up to start taking notes, and I noticed a little bit of ink on the nib, which is kind of unusual. And when I went to write, just a blob of ink came out and got on my page, which was no big deal, but a little bit got on my shirt as well. And so I went to the restroom, cleaned it up a little bit, and from then on, it just wrote fine. I don't think my notebook had gotten jostled in any way. It was just me getting in the car, driving a couple minutes. So I'm not sure what happened. I'm using Waterman Mysterious Blue. This is the first time I've had a Pilot pen burp. Now, one of the things I've thought about is I listened to the Goulet Pens podcast. Someone had commented to them that the exterior fins are for catching ink that possibly burps out of the pen and keeping it from dripping. And the feed on my Pilot steel nibs don't have those large external feeds. They just have these really shallow vertical fins. I don't even know, I wouldn't even call that fins. They've got these shallow, I'm not even sure what you would call that. So that allows any ink that does burp, it really doesn't have anywhere to go, but that doesn't explain why it burped to begin with. I'm not sure. And I haven't had any issues with it since then. Well, let's go ahead and write with it and see if I've got any ink in here. Writes nice. Let's see what the reverse is like on this. Yeah, the reverse writing is really nice on both of these nibs. So because of that ink burp, I ended up not taking any fountain pens with me on vacation. Part of the reason was I didn't want a pen to burp in my suitcase or in my purse. I knew we would be traveling, and my purse and my luggage would sometimes be in a hot car for a while, but I knew I was going to be buying a new pen on my trip, or I was hoping to buy a new pen on my trip. So one of the things I learned on that trip is that I really prefer fountain pens over mechanical pencils or ballpoint pens. I took a pencil with me to work on math with my daughter until I was able to get my new pen, and just those few days of having to use a pencil to do pages of math problems really made me appreciate my fountain pens even more. It's just, I can just write forever with the correct fountain pen, a pen that fits my hand nicely and is comfortable. I can write forever. Even with a pencil that I call a comfortable pencil, my hand gets tired over time. Just that extra pressure you have to exert on the page, your hand will get tired. All right. Well, if you found this video helpful, please give me a thumbs up. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel.